Do. Ready?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. Welcome to the Weekly Jargon. My name's Abel Perez.
Jose Rodriguez.
Rohi Zachariah.
And we are here on the Weekly Jargon bringing about the latest jargon, what's happening. And we always collect information from our subscribers, from the individuals in our comments of our videos. We greatly appreciate you. And if you'd like to participate, we encourage you to like, subscribe, and of course, smash that bell so you're notified every time new content is brought to you. So gentlemen, what's on today's agenda? What are we talking about?
Rohi?
Madera, keeping it local again today.
Yeah, we're keeping it local. Not loco, but local.
That's it.
Local.
Maybe a little loco, right? All right,
There's always a little loco.
Yeah, and as always, we revert to the jar, and the jar is going to tell you specifically what questions we intend to answer today. So, Mr. Rodriguez, let's let's get to it.
There you
All
go.
I'll take one here.
I'll start off here, and this question is, what makes Madera an opportunity for businesses?
Awesome. And then, Rohi?
Was the closure of MCH a local government decision?
All right. Is traffic congestion going to be an issue on Cleveland Avenue? Right. So just some of the more popular questions, and for some that don't or aren't too familiar with Madera, Madera has experienced a wave of change, right? And I think that's the biggest word is it's simply just a lot of change. Our hospital, which is a privately owned hospital, has just experienced an emergency closure due to financial hardship. We have one of the more popular grocery stores that have been here for several years. They've closed their doors, and that building will convert over to different retail. We have a popular restaurant, right? That was probably one of the largest standalone restaurants in town. It was locally owned for the last several years. And they experienced closure, not just closure, but a complete mauling of the building as In-N-Out Burger has decided to purchase that property and park itself there, right? Construction on the other side of Cleveland, where we have new corporate retail, Dutch Brothers, right, which is located within probably about a half a mile from where In-N-Out is expected to be. And if anybody has ever experienced In-N-Out and Dutch Brothers, the one thing, the correlation that they have is long lines, right? Long lines, lots of traffic flow. And so I think this is where this question, is traffic congestion going to be an issue along Cleveland, is stemming from, we're bringing in these large popular retailers, probably the most like Google searched when people are on the highway traveling, seeking that type of that type of retailer. And so all of this change happening in Madera, but some people are happy about it, other people a little upset, right? Mm-hmm. So let's dive right in.
I think that's what we're going to call the trifecta, right? I mean, you have a closure of a hospital, like you said, you have a popular restaurant going down, and then you also have the grocery store. And I think comments that we've heard on social media have obviously impacted some of the people that shop there, go there, or even the hospital that stay there as patients, right? So I think it's an important topic to cover because there's a lot of questions out there that are unanswered. And I think today we can dive into trying to answer those. But going back to that question about traffic, obviously that's going to create some traffic down the Cleveland corridor, right? And it doesn't help that we have this other, what I want to call a very messy intersection there, going towards the Country Club Drive to go to Dutch Brothers also, which is it's something that the city has always looked at. It's just the amount of funding to try to get that to where traffic can flow easily. It's not something that you can do overnight. Obviously, there's studies that take place. From that, then you have to take in consideration the engineering. You have to cooperate not only with the railroad that goes there, but also trying to get traffic to flow clearly. And I think with time, it'll essentially happen. I think this is good for Madera because I've always said when there's chaos or there's uncertainty, there lies the opportunity. And I think, we may have a closure here, but we have two new smaller, they're franchise restaurants. You have Dutch Brothers, which is a coffee service, and then you have the In-N-Out Burger. And what that does for the city and for people that live in the city is that not only provides the access to both of those great services, but it also brings in revenue that you wouldn't otherwise capture because they're nationally recognized and they're being advertised on a major corridor, which is Highway 99. It captures a lot of folks that are coming off north or south of the freeway and leaving their taxes that we collect, and we can use that for infrastructure. We can use that to advertise even for more businesses and what have you. But for the most part, it captures in a great portion of sales tax that is the biggest revenue generator for the city's general fund.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when we're talking about traffic congestion, the idea that there's traffic is a blessing in general, right? And I always go back to like everybody wants that hallmark, that Radiator Springs community where it's like, you know, people stop and, you know, they're having all this great time. But what happens in all of those movies, right? The town shuts down. A highway is built that goes around the town, and now that town can't reap any benefits of all of that traffic. And it cripples that town, right? You see Los Banos, that town is booming. They have all kinds of building going on, houses being built, but they have almost every, you know, retail popular fast food joint down that strip, and they're thriving. They have Chili's, they have, you know, all of these chain restaurants parking the way because of all that traffic, right? It is a huge blessing. If there was to be a highway built around Los Banos, that town would deteriorate very quickly, right? We're very blessed here in Madera to have the Highway 99, one of the busiest highways probably in the country, right through the heart of Madera, right? And so I see these In-N-Outs, Dutch Brothers, Starbucks, you know, all of these as shiny lures that are out there, right? And as all the fish are driving down the freeway, they're going to see those shiny lures and they're going to exit. And that then gives opportunities for our small businesses to thrive. Our small business tire shops, our small business, you know, boutiques, and all, whatever you may be selling. Position yourself strategically surrounding these retailers, and you may see a very thriving business, right? We like to compare ourselves here in Madera. We always like to say, man, Clovis has everything, right? Man, Clovis, right? Well, Clovis, they have one of the biggest communities of small businesses that are active and thriving. But they also know how to intertwine all of these popular chains. You go there, and you're not going to be absent of whatever, you know, Dutch Brothers. There's probably 2 or 3 Dutch Brothers surrounding the town. There's probably 2 or 3 In-N-Outs out there, right? It's because those ultimately are the things that people need that complement those small businesses. It really helps them thrive. So those are those shiny lures, and without those shiny lures, you're not going to get, you know, we're not going to have our real estate that surrounds that considered prime anymore, right?
Yeah.
So traditionally, right there off of the 26th, that where Save Mart is, and Pacifica Pizza, you know, you got a high turnover of retailers there because it just traffic hasn't been that great, right? Now all of a sudden you're starting to see, you know, less and less vacancies there because people are wanting to position themselves there. They're wanting to thrive. You're seeing a little bit more investment in the buildings and the escalations that are being put out there. The buildings are looking better, and it's because these type of retailers are providing that type of opportunity. So I embrace the traffic.
Yeah.
You know, it is going to, you know, be unfortunate when I'm trying to cross over using that corridor and there's a train and traffic's backed up, right? But it's like in Madera, it's like you can get anywhere in 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes that 15 minutes is frustrating, even for us. We're like, oh my gosh, you know, I used to be able to get there in 2 minutes. You know, have a little bit of patience, but reap the rewards. That's what I think.
Well, and I think people misunderstand that a lot of these are all private entities, even the hospital. These are all private businesses, and business is business. If you're not surviving, there's got to be some kind of change. And I think that's kind of where, you know, when people are looking like at Smokehouse, it was like, it came from a failed business right before it doing the same thing.
Right.
And obviously, if it was doing successful like people thought they were, they wouldn't be demolished today. You know, there was obviously some kind of issues going on. The fact that In-N-Out comes in, again, like you guys have said, it validates Madera. It says, hey, we're worth having something that has, they have a high criteria level to be able to come in. That's why they've never been here. Same thing with like Dutch Bros. It just validates that, oh, they finally got that check off, the list. Is it going to be the only one? Probably not. I mean, if Dutch Bros is a smart business, they're going to see the lines, they're going to see the need for expansion, and they'll probably do like Starbucks and build another one
Right.
on the other side of town. That's business.
Yeah.
When they look at Pack and Save, Pack and Save again, it was just like Smokehouse. It's a lease issue. They're up for release. They didn't want to renew. Somebody else is going to come replace you because it's still an ideal location.
Right.
It's not that Madera is a terrible place like people think and everybody's leaving and it's like the cockroaches and everybody's just spreading. It's like, no, it's just business.
Right.
And it's time for something new to come in and something new to take over that will survive and, thinks they have a good chance at it. So, I mean, people have to recognize it's not that Madera's doing anything wrong. It's just, again, it's part of business.
Yeah, and going back to what you said there, Rohi, I think it's important to highlight is that businesses do suffer, businesses do go through changes, and they evolve. And I don't think that In-N-Out was a strategic position from In-N-Out. They just know that the location for them, access to freeway, is part of their criteria. And people have asked, well, why couldn't you put them out here? Well, it wasn't up to anyone specific, right? They choose to come here, and they have their own criteria of where they want to position themselves. Now, you can certainly protest against that, but then you run the chance of not having any In-N-Out and a failing business there too. So at the end of the day, you have blight. And that's what you try to avoid, is try to make sure that you replenish that quickly with, like you said, the architecture around the buildings that are starting to look a little bit better. If you allow all these businesses to kind of fall, and all you would see is like vacant buildings, boarded buildings, with huge parking lots that are empty. And now, out in that area, you started seeing the closure of Mervin's, and then all of a sudden you have someone like Vallarta that can come in there, and now it's filled up. Now there's something, activity going on there, right? Obviously, the demographics change, so therefore, you're going to have different businesses evolving to be able to cater to that demographic. But at the end of the day, I mean, Madera is a great opportunity for many of these businesses to come here. Traffic, of course, is going to be one of the concerns, but with the demand of these businesses and with the long lines, then that creates, hey, there's an issue here. That then pushes city government to say, we need to do something about this traffic. And obviously it takes time. You never get something done within the first year of when it occurs. If anything, it's a gradual process. You got to do the engineering. You have to do the studies. You have to go through a CEQA process to make sure that there's no environmental issues. And once that's all said and done, then you can come back and start the planning and then start the development of it, right? And that could take anywhere from 10 to 15 years, if not longer. But eventually, look at the Highway 99. That wasn't always the location of Highway 99. The Golden State, this was back in the years when you had 99 running through different areas. Now it's kind of encroached over certain parts of the city. And it's happened with all cities throughout the Central Valley. But at the end of the day, this is how we become very resilient to that. We have traffic, we accommodate, we find ways. We have the Ellis Overcross that became a big reliever for some of those that were having issues trying to get to the Road 26 or Country Club Drive. So what did that overpass do? Gave access. And again, that took some time, some planning. So I'm sure in the future we'll be able to see that we'll be able to relieve some of that congestion, hopefully by the engineering and the demand that occurs around that shopping center.
Well, the businesses around it need to see the benefit too. I mean, like the gas station across the street from In-N-Out is going to see an increase because a family who decides which exit to take, if they want In-N-Out, they're going to take the In-N-Out, get their food, and they're going to go get their gas. Maybe they're going to stay at the hospital or the hotel. That's right behind there, just because. Maybe they're that big of fans that, hey, we needed to stay over the night somewhere. Let's stay here at this hotel because our favorite restaurant's across the street.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I remember being a kid, and anytime we would travel to Los Angeles, of course, back then Los Angeles still seems far, but back then it seemed even further, right? And you had to prepare for the climb of the Grapevine, and it was like cars. I guess they weren't as strong as they were now, so maybe they weren't as reliable. So it was always like this huge anticipated moment. But so what did we do? We made sure we stopped in Bakersfield. And there was In-N-Out, McDonald's, all of that there all within the same section. But we'd always stop there, and we'd fuel up the car, fuel up our bodies, use the restroom, everything like that, get snacks, And then it was like we're going on this voyage across the mountain, right? And so I think the traveling people, whether you're an individual traveling for business or a family traveling on vacation, you find staples, you find places, pit stops that you're going to make, and that pit stop has to accommodate everything. You have to be able to put the gas, fuel yourself, use the restroom, all of these things. And now you see that in that Bakersfield area, they have an entire outlet, right? So that stop becomes a lot longer for my family and I, because now we're stopping there and we know, okay, the boys are going to get a couple pieces of clothing too from the Nike store, right? They're going to get some new basketball shorts or, new T-shirts, whatever the case may be, because we know that that's the value that brings. So it anchors people and helps them gravitate towards that town, that city, right? And with traffic, like you said, Jose, it brings tax dollars, right? And I think a lot of people don't realize that it's not just how much are people spending, how much taxes can we possibly collect on an $8 meal, right? That's chump change. A lot of our taxes, maybe you could touch on that, are transaction based, right? Correct. So it doesn't matter if they spend $1,000 or $5, we're still getting that equal amount of taxes that go directly to the city, right?
Correct.
So
I mean, and for some of those that don't know how the revenues come in, again, we already have a half-cent sales tax measure that we have, which is Measure K. Mm-hmm. And for every transaction within the city limits, then that's an increase to our fire and police, right, which is public safety. On top of that, you get the additional 1%. So there's a ton of money that's generated. You may think, well, it's just a burger. But it's a burger that you paid maybe $20 for your family, right? Mm-hmm. But you take that a cent and a half, and you multiply that by all that transactions that's millions of dollars at the end of the year that we can bring back into our coffers, again, to help with our general fund, right? There's a lot of expenditures that we have for services that we do, and I think at the end of the day, if you look at the amount of money that's generated through the sales tax, it's a big chunk of the general fund. So I would imagine, what if we didn't have anything like that? How would the city, being a very smaller community knit-based type of city, then what would really occur? Would we be suffering? Would we be hemorrhaging? Because expenditures still happen. You have to take care of infrastructure, sewer, water, police, and all that. Mm-hmm. Where are you making up those funds? This is why the community supported a measure like Measure K, because they knew that we needed additional support for public safety. Right? So that being said, that tells you, hey, we're willing to pay additional taxes. Now imagine if those taxes are coming from outside. Then you want to capture those taxes. To your point, that's exactly what the city's intention is, to be able to capture them in this very busy corridor. If you're not doing it, Fresno's doing it, Chowchilla's doing it, Merced's doing it. So you have to kind of go with the flow and adapt to what's taking place in order to generate money. Unfortunately, it is going to be these stops that are near the freeway exit. So yeah,
Jose, can you read me your question again? I want to make sure that we get. Yeah. So we I know we beat up
what
the
makes
traffic congestion.
Madera an opportunity for businesses, and I think we may have touched this a bit. We touched on the fact that we're next to a very busy corridor. We're the center of California. But on top of that, there's land, industrial. We've become a mecca for a lot of these industries that want to come here because they see the value in Madera. They see the value not only in the land, that we have access to land. I mean, one of the issues that we suffer, but also around our Central Valley is energy, PG&E, and that's being worked on. There's a plan out there to help, but this is why people want to establish themselves, just because Madera has been a great recipient of them. That we've offered, yes, come on by. This is a great opportunity to create jobs like Georgia Pacific, Colored Box. You have what's the other big?
Canandaigua?
The AC one up here that
Baltimore
Air and Coil, and there's all these other industries that come here, and they're great paying jobs for people. Again, not only increasing our tax base, but giving that rise in median incomes, which is great because that's what bigger retailers look for. They look for what is the discretionary income that you have after you pay for all your expenses. Yeah. If you're barely making ends meet, then most likely you're not going to be these big retailer like Costco's and stuff like that. But we're starting to get there. and they'll look at us and say, you know what, this is a very good opportunity. So that's why I say whenever there's uncertainty, there lies opportunity. Madera's doing some great things. I still think that it's a great opportunity for businesses to come in here and park their stores here or park their businesses.
You know, there's we talked about Facebook buzzing, right? And I think we all have somebody on our Facebook, or we've seen on different Facebook groups, you know, people saying, why Madera? Why are you letting Pack and Save close? Why are you letting the hospital close? Why are you letting, you know, In-N-Out come and mull down a small, you know, restaurant? You know, why? They're asking those questions. And so I want to bring that up because that's right in line with that question, right? You might have a lot of naysayers out there that say, oh, Madera is so great. Why are you letting them shut down, right? So, you know, wanting to touch on that answer, right? Why? Rohi mentioned it earlier. It's business, right? And I think that's the biggest thing that we have to that I'd like to drive home is the idea that, or the fact that each of these either closures or buildings, it's all business decisions made by people, right? It's and I, you know, when we talk about Sugar Pine shutting down, right? That landowner decided, or that person who was holding that lease decided, okay, now whether or not that there was bad business there, I don't know, right? I don't have enough information. I'm not privy to that information. But for whatever reason, the person who owned that land decided that the security of his financial gain or interest, right, of that property fit best in the hands of a contract with In-N-Out versus this other small business. So much so that he was willing to knock it down completely and have In-N-Out completely rebuild, right? That and have a long-term lease. And so I want the people to put themselves into the shoes of the owner, the property owner. You know, what would you do if you had a business that, you know, was rumored to be struggling, that was rumored that to, you know, possibly be shutting down or, you know, naturally on its own case? Would you stick it out with that individual and really try to run it till the rails fall off, hoping that you get your monthly check from the lease on that? Or, you know, are you going to start fresh, start a new agreement with a corporation that is just known for success? You know, we talk about all those people who lost their jobs. I feel for them. I think anybody who, you know, goes through that, you know, it's an experience that, you know, I've been through before. You know, I've been a recipient on the losing end of layoffs and things of that nature. So I know it's nothing fun, you know, but when business decisions are made and we compare one business to another, In-N-Out is loading that place with employment. You know, probably more. I think their headcount is going to be more than what was there pre-existing, and the wages will be more than what those individuals were being paying, right? So it's not just a fast food joint that's coming in and, you know, oh, those are minimum wage earners. No, they're going to actually provide a healthy wage for those individuals that will be working there. But again, that business decision comes from the owner. You know, they come from the owner of that property is deciding, okay, we're going to move forward because this is the economic benefit, right? And one last point when it comes to, you know, that whole exchange with In-N-Out, I think people get confused, right, and associate the government or the city's involvement with this because the question, you know, it becomes a question. You know, does In-N-Out, and we leave it to the people, does In-N-Out, should we approve them going here, right? Oh, well, Madera has the choice to put In-N-Out there. No, that's not the question. In-N-Out wants to come here. In-N-Out, again, is a corporation who makes financial decisions based off their assessment. They want to invest in Madera, but they only want to invest in Madera if we can put them here because they have done this before. They know where they need to be positioned strategically so that they can have success and that they're not shutting down in 2 or 3 years. They want to be right here, right? So we're going to open it up to the public and say, you know, hey, what do you think of this, right? And I just, it's funny when they say, oh, why are they building that right there? Why do they, you know, get rid of this? Well, who's they, right? It's business people. It's individuals that are maybe made up of the community members it's people amongst your peers who are making these decisions because they have the right to do so.
I look at it, I mean, for me, my best example of what people need to understand is, we used to, when I was probably maybe 10 years ago, we used to frequent a taco stand. It was a taco truck. There was one across the street, and it's your basic story. We'd always go to the same one because everybody said that was the better one. After a couple of years of going to that one, they built a restaurant, and guess what? There's no more taco truck across the street. There's no competition to them, but that's business. They survived out of the two of them. They did the right thing, and then they progressed and they built the restaurant. And if they keep going with that mentality and they say, hey, look, our restaurant's doing good, we should build a second one. That's franchising. And all of a sudden now you're in and out.
Right.
You come up with a name, you come up with a menu, but that's basic business. It to demonize and say in and out, oh, they're a corporation, oh, they're big. No, they started at one point as a simple restaurant, flipping burgers. They had the right recipe and the right business mindset to expand it. And to demonize it is wrong,
Right.
And like I said, the other taco truck that didn't make it, we didn't stand up and protest and say, hey, why did we let these guys fall apart? Well, you made that decision. Everybody shopped to the other one, and that's basic business,
And I like how you put that, because at the end of the day, I think even as a city, and I can only speak for myself when I say this, but you look at processes that go through when you're adding a business like this, because they have to go through the city for permits and licensing and planning and all that, right? But all that still comes through a process where you allow the public to really have an opportunity to comment. And a lot of the times, you hear a lot in social media buzz. You hear a lot of it, and that's great. There's a lot of interest. People want to get engaged. But I think if you really want to get engaged in the processes of allowing these businesses to come in. If you really wanted to protest, then there's an opportunity, not only for you, but all these folks that feel the same way that can come before the planning commission or the city council. I mean, typically it's your planning commission, right? Mm-hmm. Well, you sit there and you kind of experience that. So I don't know that you had the uproar with In-N-Out whenever there was a public hearing.
I mean, there was a little bit, but again, I think the people that were there, again, were under the assumption that, Smokehouse was this big, successful, booming business that everybody's confused why it's shutting down. And it wasn't. At that meeting, there was a lot released that basically said otherwise, that, it was in the best interest of the leaseholder to basically cut the lease because they weren't making any money anymore. And I think that's where the public kind of got their first wind of it, and it kind of, changed a lot of opinion. But still, people don't know that, so they have that resentment that just says like, oh, you took out a very successful business. And it's like, no, actually, it was what was needed to happen. And again, it wasn't the city's decision. We just had the planning to kind of say, it meets the criteria. Here's our concerns. Okay, you're going to address them. Well, there's not really much else we can say if you're going to address the traffic concerns.
And if you deny it, then you have to be able to uphold that denial with some litigation, right? So those are always potentials that happen out there. Yeah. Unfortunately, that didn't happen here. But again, to my point is, if you really want to make a big roar, then the way to do it is go through the process. Obviously, social media is great because it gets a lot of people hyped up. But then the next step would be, hey, let's go ahead and get together and let's make the public comment here. Let your city or let the planning commission know how you feel about this, right? But again, you have to be able to really justify as to why you wouldn't want to allow a business. Like you said earlier, this is a big franchise deciding and making Madera their choice. And I've heard it over and over. Why can't we have an In-N-Out? Why can't we have a Target? Yeah. Well, it's happening. Yeah. Slowly but surely it's happening. And again, with the development of Dutch Brothers, In-N-Out, guess what else starts wanting to consider? Bigger stores, bigger stores. And then this is what kind of drives us there. And I think, give it a chance. Yes, we're not happy about what happened with the hospital. I'm not happy with what happened with the Sugar Pine. I'm not happy with what happened with Pack and Save. But there's nothing that I can do in my power or even in your individual power to make that change, because we're not the owners of that land. We're not the ones managing that. It's a business decision, and it happens. It's happened in the past. It's just so that it's happening now, and this is why we're talking about it. But again, it'll happen again. It'll happen again.
Change is hard, right? And Pack and Save experienced the same thing, a business decision, And Pack and Save wasn't so much of a business decision on behalf of Pack and Save, but they were kind of a victim of being a business that has a lease, and when you don't own the property, you don't have the right to say, I want to stay here forever. you know, the owner of that property does.
Especially at this price, right?
And
They're
again,
increasing the price, so that means the property owners have to see that there's a value to it. If things
Right.
were so bad, they would be negotiating.
right. And so, are any of you aware if that owner of Pack and Save owns that entire complex, the entire Walmart complex?
Except for Walmart.
Except for
Well, at like the southern side, they do not. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's
We do the security there, so I can help you with that.
So, you know, what I was alluding to was that's a business decision, right? If you have, you know, let's say 10 suites that, and out of the 10, 9 of them are just constant turnover. You know, there's just constant turnover there. You're constantly looking for people to be there. I've seen barbershops, I've seen bookstores, I've seen, you know, all kinds of random places, not retail, corporate retail, right? Not with those major branding there, but they've been trying to survive there for a very long time, right? And now if all of a sudden you have the opportunity to bring in some big names, I'm terrible. I don't even know what's going in there. What is it? TJ Maxx or
Smart and
something?
Final.
Smart and Final.
Yeah.
So a Smart and Final, and I think there's another one that's going to go, that's going to split that.
Thinking right now, yeah.
It was like a Ross or something.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But those are almost household names, right? Those are commercial names to where when you're looking for your stop, when you're looking, okay, I'm going to grab a burger here at In-N-Out, or I'm going to grab my coffee at this Starbucks or this Dutch Brothers. You're starting to look around, and now you have a Walmart, you have a Walgreens, you have, you know, a Lowe's, you have Smart and Final, you have these things. It pushes you towards there, right? And so again, that's that business decision. And then earlier I mentioned lures, right? Those businesses are lures, but what are we trying to catch? We're trying to catch the big fish, right? So we throw the little, and when you're fishing, you throw some shad out there, right? Just to let the fish know that, okay, this is safe to eat, right? And then you throw the real hook. And that real hook, those are going to be your Target complexes, those are going to be your Costco's, those big dogs who say, oh man, you know, we finally have traffic being drawn into these areas, you know, and so when they do their surveys, they're going to say, this is where we need to be. This is where we need to invest, right?
But an example of where this is, like, again, that same shopping center, people aren't aware, the Togos, they went out of business.
Yeah.
Togo's chain, huge name. Where was the protest? Where was everybody? We need to save Togo's. You know,
Right.
That's a locally owned guy, great guy. He was great with the community. Nobody was protesting or raising a roar of, hey, we need to survive this Togo's. It went to the wayside. You know, no news about it. So
And it happens, unfortunately, to many businesses around here. I think those particularly are bigger chains, or at least the locations were impactful.
great
to some.
location. I mean, surrounded by all kinds of big names.
Yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah. And these particular 3 that we're talking about, obviously, with the exception of the hospital, I think we all know that. But I think that really created a big uproar from the community,
Yeah.
because, you know, one happened right after the other, right? And now with the hospital closure, then that gives an opening for people to really start bashing on why. But again, there was another question in regards to, does that lie on city, local government?
Correct.
Are those decisions? And again, going back to the hospital, I don't think you could say that this was a city and or county deal. It was more of a nonprofit, privately owned company, managed their way. Obviously, we've already discussed this in our previous episode about, you know, how low reimbursement sometimes can't keep up with the higher rates that they were paying during the pandemic, and obviously that created a deficit, a quick deficit, and now they're reevaluating how to best run a hospital with these circumstances, right?
Yeah.
And that'll come out of that. Something will come out of that, right?
But again, it's no different than your pack and save.
Yeah.
It's just there'll be something. There'll be a hospital here. It'll be a different name and different management, different whoever. But I mean, it's not like Madera's going to say, "Well, I guess we don't need a hospital."
Yeah.
You know,
It's important. It's important.
Yeah,
We
it's an
know
employment
because
asset.
we know that the impacts it has on the community. We've heard it, and obviously the line that was there at the Board of Supervisors. By the way, there's another meeting going on today. But again, people spoke out. Not only employees, agencies that support the hospital, but even patients, folks that have experience there. Some dislike, others, but the majority were saying we need it, and you do, because we both work in an industry where people look for good schools, they look for city jobs, opportunity, and more importantly, they look for hospitals. And that's huge for people to want to reside here. So we understand that there's a big need for that.
I'm glad you opened that question because I wasn't going to hit you with it. But if Madera is such a great place, why do most people who work in city government and county government not live in Madera?
That's a good question. And
Why do they go somewhere else?
We've been at this, and this could be a different episode.
I'm not trying to take it aside, but I mean, you opened it. You said reside, and I reside here.
As families, one of the things that people look for, their biggest thing is education, right? So they look at the national standards, or they look at state standards of where education lies within Madera. Now, I can only speak for when I was part of the school board back from 2010 to 2014. And in between that time, I guess, we were struggling, and people that came back and saw the demographics, saw the statistics of how education was, then that kind of drove people to say, well, Clovis is not too far from here, or maybe a different suburb of Fresno is not too far from here, but their school systems are really good. Now, we got national attention through the robotics, right? So I was sitting at a music center with my daughter, and a gentleman that worked at the state, Fresno State, had his kids at Clovis, but he couldn't stop wondering as to how Madera, smaller demographics, especially when it comes to lower income folks, how they can rise to become national champions in the robotics. So that tells you that it's not about money. It's about the willingness to make a difference. And that's why the logo, we believe, here in Madera has really, I think, captured a lot of folks to really believe that it's not about money. We know it's not about money. It's the willingness of people to want to make a difference and a change. Yeah. And you have to want to believe that.
Though, Jose.
No, I get that.
You need money to make the change.
Right? But I can prove you that it's not about the money, because there's folks that come from these inner urban areas that they're social economically, they're in the lower scale. Yeah. But given the opportunity and given the resources, they can do, if not better than most of these kids that come from affluent families. That's already been proven. So people, when you ask that question, why, is because statistics definitely drive where people want to live. They want to live where, one, they crime rate is low, education is big, because they're looking for the safety of their family. We grew up around here. We can walk across the street and say, I'm not worried about that. I know the person that lives there. Yeah. That person that's homeless, I see him walking here all the time. So is he a danger to me? No, but it's not a pretty sight to see, right? So I think people, they want to look for safety, first of all. They want to look for education, and that's what drives their decisions. I personally think it's a shame that not a lot of folks want to live here, especially if they work here. But again, that's my personal opinion. I feel that if we incentivize them to stay here, then that's a different story. Yeah. And I would love to explore that, to see how we can get people to stay here, whether you work in county, you work in school districts, or you work in any local agencies. Stay here in your community, support it, because that's the only way you can lift up people, is that additional tax base, additional income that's there can support other people by supporting their jobs. But too many times, people take the easy way out because it's the security for their family. You can build a community if you believe in it.
Yeah.
I think that, when we initially struck a chord with Jose, we're talking about, is the city responsible for these closures? And, obviously I think we agree that no. I'll let the city off the hook when it comes to the closures of some of these businesses, because they are business decisions being made by the owners of the property, right? Now, where I do hold the city and counties accountable for is the growth, right? The ability to negotiate new businesses coming in, and we do have liaisons, paid positions within the city and county entities where we have individuals responsible for capturing businesses and drawing them to Madera. And in the past, we've let go of some very big projects. We've watched them slip through our hands and, land 10, 15 miles up the road, or down the road rather. Jose, I believe you're going to have success stories in every community. McFarland, they have a whole movie about their cross-country team. And, you're going to have, economically challenged cities that have a hero or have somebody who, overcame and persevered. And we love those stories, right? But those statistics are telling you what's reality, what's on average, what comes out of here, right? What kind of education are our schools producing, all of these things, right? I heard it yesterday. I coach middle school here, basketball, and we're talking about team pictures and stuff, and we're halfway through the season. Hey, are we going to get am I going to get a polo, a jacket, or a hat, or anything? Like something that gives me some branding. Oh no, it's not in our budget this year. This and that. Another guy says, "Oh, we're not Clovis," and and that's the joke. We're not Clovis, and I think that's the frustrating thing as a community member. It's like, no, we're not Clovis, right? But come on, man, a polo for a coach who's devoting time. Yeah, we get a little tiny stipend, but that's not even close to being. I think at that point I'm making $2 an hour or something all the time that I'm putting into it, right? But my point is we have to have more of a winning attitude when it comes to our education systems. We have to be willing to say, all right, let's think outside the box. Let's build. Let's grow. What is important? Robotics has put us on the map, and it is huge for engineers, right? Whose kids they want to influence in that same direction, and we're starting to see a lot of looks from that way. We have middle schools that are being built that are tech middle schools. All those things super great, and that is starting to put little bleeps on there, right? But don't stop there. Where's everything else, right?
Yeah.
But as far as the city goes, are they responsible? These businesses that are being shut down, no, they're not responsible. These are business decisions being made. But the city also has a very important responsibility to start ensuring that the infrastructure surrounding these businesses that are coming in. We're reducing the amount of red tape that needs to be applied so that people do want to come. They do feel Madera is business friendly, and they realize that Madera is willing to play ball. They're willing to help us out. They have high standards. They want the fascia to look great. They want their town to look beautiful. So we can't just come in and build our base model business. We need to have our elevations at the top, but in return, this is what they're going to do for us, right? And I would say Cleveland, and then starting to steer around over to 26, we're starting to see that. Starbucks comes down, knocks down a very old, ugly Long John Silver's, and they put a beautiful building right there, right? That's an example of, that's the Madera standard. This is what we require. If you're going to do business here, you're going to make a lot of money. So in return, we want your best product.
Yeah, and then you got a state-of-the-art high school that was just put up there. Not too far from there, you have the middle school and the elementary school. So it's getting there, And again, that's still not city where the high school's at, but it's getting it's part of our sphere of influence, and we're trying to capture to where we can have development around those areas that can support those businesses. And you're starting to see that. So essentially, you start allocating monies aside for infrastructure, stuff like that. But I mean, it doesn't happen overnight. Going back to what you said about Clovis, obviously Clovis this was back in the 70s or early 80s when Buchanan took Clovis, a suburb of Fresno, and said, we're going to concentrate not only on athletics, but academics. Athletics being at the center of it. And who wasn't inspired to want to be part of that, right? So this was an idea that came from here, stemmed from this, became what Clovis is today. And people that supported obviously believed in it. We have a dual immersion program here that's by far one of the best in the state. And again, it's happening here in Madera. They're not home runs, because I think everybody wants to see us hit home runs. Mm-hmm. They're what we call base hits, just little small bunts that are getting you to base, but you're still scoring at the end of the day. Because the ultimate goal is how do you score, right? And by doing these little small base hits, we'll get there. Not to the level of what you see Clovis today, because we can't compare ourselves to Clovis. Two different demographics. We have to separate that. And people, as long as you can learn to separate that and make Madera its own unique, and identify Madera in its own unique city, then you'll have a lot more success than trying to compare it to this other city that already is established in some way. They have their own things going on. We can do it a different way, and we can certainly become very successful. If not, I believe we can do it better than they are. That's because we have the resources, we have
Ladies
the
and
people.
gentlemen, Jose Rodriguez 2024 campaign. To donate now, click the link below.
I may need security, by the way.
Yeah, a lot of it. Yeah.
No, that's good stuff, but and then lastly, so we touched on these questions, and lastly, we talk about the hospital, right? And the hospital, obviously, there's a lot of sentiment to that, right? Because literally without that, you could lose your life. I mean, as simple as that, right?
I'm worried right now. And I stay away from the freeway because I'm worried,
Yeah, and it's insane. I don't know. We have a whole entire episode on the
Exactly,
hospital, right? That you can revert to. But I will say again, another business decision that was made by the board, right? Because it is a private company, and they decided that we have to shut down, and we have to shut down immediately. Otherwise, we're not going to have the ability to pay our employees, and so we got to cut it off. You know, whatever monies we have left, you know, use that to pay off our employees and shut down, right? And so now we have, you know, it kind of up in the air who's going to take over, what type of, you know, we need a hospital. The county's under a state of emergency. I think we're in a double state of emergency now with the floods. So we have, you know, terrible road conditions, mudslides falling down, and we don't have a hospital, right? So, you know, when you say, "Sheesh, that's a rough 2023," that's kind of piling up on us. You know, why should I move over to Madera? You know, again, being a private hospital, a private decision was made, right? And that's, I think, not being taken lightly by the community, and it shouldn't be taken lightly by, you know, city and county government agencies, as they need to understand that, you know, this is important. And even though we don't have oversight over that private hospital, there probably needs to be something put in place for whoever does come in to ensure that if there is kind of like a safety cord, right? If we do get into, you know, 12 months of shutting down, you know, we throw a red flag up right away, alert everybody, and then we can respond without being panicked, right? We're being a little bit more proactive than reactive, and we're able to find funding or find solutions to keep that going, right?
And Jose, didn't the city have? I remember we talked about maybe a year or two ago. The city had some kind of incentives. I don't remember if it was for new business or existing business for I think they were like 10,000 or something. You were saying that business could get to help with. Was that new or old or how?
There was a grant process that we do in loans at the through the EDC, I think, to try to drive more businesses to come out here. And I think through the city or the county of Madera or the city of Chowchilla, but more importantly for the city of Madera, there was and there is some opportunities. Again, speaking to our EDC director, I think can certainly help.
Yeah.
But if that's a business that's listening to this and you're interested, yeah, give us a holler or give us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to have your business here, by the way. We don't shut any business away. And obviously, it's got to be very positive for the community. There's been some discourse as far as yes, no, it's not positive, but I think overall, and when you look at the revenues and you look at the decisions that businesses make, I think it's positive for the community. We just have to give it an opportunity, give it a chance.
Aside from the hospital, because again, the hospital is serious, right?
Yeah.
It is a serious thing, and we need you know, ER services here with so many people. But I think that'll be worked out hopefully soon. Great place to do business, you know, and I would say these are great problems to have, almost like your first world problems, right? Oh my gosh, we're mowing down a building for another another corporation. There's towns and here in California, in the Central Valley, they see a closure, and that building is a new hotel for bums. You know, it's shut down. It's now a roach motel. You know, and they may never see anybody occupy that property again. That property owner loses significant dollars. So now that individual, who's again maybe part of the community, putting money back into the community, doesn't have as much, and it's a trickle effect, right? So the idea that we're saying, oh my gosh, we're substituting these older buildings or these failing businesses for newer, thriving businesses, it's a great problem to have. And I think it's a testimony to the idea that Madera is wanting to grow, is ready to grow, has a capacity to support these types of businesses. And again, they're business decisions. So these top names making a decision to come here and make money, it's because they've already done all the assessment. They're much smarter than I. And they're, you know, and they're much smarter than most of you, and so I mean, because these are their dollars, these are their investments that they know that they're going to have to put into it. Of course, they're not going to want to fail. So I think Madera is great.
Yeah.
Rohim, you mentioned earlier, you know, the roads, right? You said we're not underwater, you know, and
I mean that's always been my thing with, you know, I have friends that are in the country. I got friends in the other areas, and every time there's this kind of thing, there's a storm coming. and I'll look at my weather stored coming. Okay, and I get prepared and I go outside, and it just never comes. And I think especially the last couple of days for us in Madera, it's kind of been that way. At least in the city, where I look at my phone, thunderstorms, and it's our joke. It's like, okay, it says 12 o'clock, and 1 o'clock comes by and it's still sunny. And I feel like Madera is really this place that if you really go back and you look at it, the bad weather goes around us. It'll hit Chowchilla, it'll hit Fresno, we'll have tornadoes, and Madera will be, great in the city. So I really think there's something special here, just in that aspect that says, like I said, we're not underwater. We don't have earthquakes, no hurricanes, no tornadoes, no ice storms. Madera is really kind of boring.
And I know people will say, "What? My corner's flooded."
Yeah.
If you're in the county, my lawn's flooded. Okay, that's fine. But yeah, go turn on the news.
Yeah,
there's towns that are underwater right now.
I was just there yesterday.
I know.
Jose was rescuing his family,
and not that far away. Really.
Not that far, but we're about 25 miles
yeah.
northeast. Yeah, and unfortunately for some of those folks, they're already at their doorsteps at 3-4 feet.
Yeah,
already flooded.
Great opportunity for them to come move to Madera.
Yeah,
buy some land.
Hey,
get a house
I brought
here.
a couple of them out here yesterday, so hopefully they may reconsider. But again, I just want to finish off with this: is that know that there is still a responsibility, obviously, on the county and local governments to try to provide some type of medical care, and those responsibilities are being worked out, right? Because there's funds that are allocated to help with certain demographics and help bring something here. So I think those services are being worked out. I can't give you specifics because I don't have that purview yet, but I'm sure there'll be discussions in the future. But know that Madera, it's going to continue to grow. It's going to continue to grow, and I hope that from these experiences, we get to grow in a positive way as well. Because I like I said in the past, and I'll say it again, when there is uncertainty, there's always opportunity. And the city government, we listen. We listen because people have asked, what about downtown? Mm-hmm. Well, there's a project going underway now, trying to get State Highway 145 kind of revamped so that people can actually enjoy going down there. But now that'll take private ownership that lives in those buildings there to try to do something there to bring it up to standard, to hopefully bring it and make it engaging for other folks. We're trying to make the pathway to capture those dollars, but now it also takes effort on the other end to try to do that. We wanted public housing, so we brought Esperanza Village out there too. Again, this is a cooperation between not only the Moores Board, the Housing Authority, and the state, and other private tax credits that really help bring that development happen, and it's happening. We're making things happen, things that we don't get a lot of spotlight for, but it is happening slowly. We are listening, and stuff like this obviously is something that we can kind of certainly implement into future policies, but it's not something that lies solely on local governments. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, Jose Rodriguez campaign too. Just kidding. Good stuff, guys. Well, I think that about touches it. If you guys have any comments or you think we're full of something, let us know. We'd be happy to. We'd be happy to respond.
If we're flooding the show with something, let us know.
And if you got something that says we are underwater, shoot us a picture. And again, there's, I think overall Madera is a great place. It's where I choose to live. It's where all three of us choose to live, and we're all raising families here. And I think we have a lot of first world problems here, right? We're upset about a lot of stuff that a lot of people in the world don't get, or in the state don't get to be upset about. So follow us, like us, subscribe to us, and hit that bell so you can get an alert the next time we upload a video. Let us know what you think. Take care.